G'day campers, how are you? And welcome to another Thursday night live around the campfire. And tonight I've got with us the beautiful Kylie Hutchinson, death doula, who helps people at end of life. I've got Helen Glover, who runs the Modern Masculine podcast, and I've got Paul Purdon down there in Tassie from the One Stop Shed Shop. I'll get around it, but more important, is an amazing mentor to many. So welcome, guys, and welcome to our conversation tonight, acting with love in our hearts. This is something for me that's been a big part of my life, and I'm rapt that I've got the panel we've got tonight, because the panel we've got tonight all lead from their heart, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. And I'm going to open tonight with Paul, because I've actually done the one-on-one with Paul, but due to my tech skills, my computer's not working and I can't quite get it loaded up. But anyway, that's me. That's standard. So welcome, Paul.
Thanks, mate.
Acting. Oh, sorry, welcome, girls too. Yeah. So sorry. Acting with love in your heart. What does that mean to you?
You know, I've been doing it for so long. It's become so natural for me, Scott. I don't know if I can actually explain to you what it means, because it's just part of my life. And I think if I try and think back over the years to when I was I guess I wasn't thinking the way I currently think, is that I reacted to situations, and I think that's what I did. I just reacted to whatever was around me without giving it any thought. And so when I learnt that, you know, there were two ways to be able to handle a situation, and that was, you know, that the norm, which was just to react and go in without giving it any consideration. The alternative was to stop and think about the best possible outcome for not just me, but for whoever it was that was involved in any situation. And then I started to learn about how to control myself in these situations, whether it was leading a team, creating a team, or client conflict, staff conflict and confrontation, even family confrontation. Once I started, I think the thought process of, instead of going in there where I had to win, it was all about, well, what's the best outcome for everyone? And then it started to turn into, someone mentioned to me many years ago, well, just try this. And I said, what is it? Go into any situation with love in your heart. So prepare yourself with nothing more than just love. So whatever the outcome, it doesn't matter. And it was like a light bulb moment, I guess. And it was just so liberating, I guess is the word. As I said, it's really hard to know what it means to me now, because I just practice it so much. It's just an everyday occurrence. And I guess conversations that you and I've had over the years, we've been able to talk about different situations that may be grieving us, and we remind ourselves about going into any confrontation or any conversation with love in our heart to get the best result. And it's just, I think it's just grown from there. I don't even know if I've answered your question, to be honest, mate. I just.
Well, if it's okay with you, I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper with you on that, because you're the man that taught me to live with love in my heart. And to ask that question before I go into any conflict, you and I have often talked about it, about, you know, we've had opportunities at home, we've had opportunities at work, and you've been able to pull me up and say, slow down, with love in your heart and love for this person, how can you handle this situation? I'm forever grateful that you've done that. And it's changed my life dramatically and the way in which I approach people. So, I want to say thank you for that. I think you've got a pretty good breakdown of it. I'm going to move over to Helen now, if that's okay, and ask Helen, what is it to live with love in your heart, acting with love in your heart?
Oh, I think it's incredibly important, because it also goes back to authenticity, judgment, all that kind of stuff, you know, and about the acceptance of just being exactly who we are. Because if we can allow everybody then to be imperfect and to come with their own stories and their own backgrounds and their own experiences, then you can love them from that place. That they don't have to be who you want them to be. They don't have to live up to your expectations even. They just, any situation, you just come with an authenticity of your own, where you can only ever really control your own part in any situation. So really, a mantra that I use with my children all the time is, you just need to learn to behave well in a bad situation, because that's when, you're really called on to come into your center, to really hold that space. Because it's all, well and good to kind of say, I'm loving this and I'm loving this. But then when it gets tough, it's like Paul said, when you go into conflict, or if you go into a difficult situation, then you come with that love that you would like to have. So it's coming from loving who you are, and then appreciating and loving the other person for what they bring, and having no attachment to what it is that they're really saying. That it's not necessarily about us. It's just how it is, So I suppose for me, that's what that represents, is the authenticity of me coming forward as myself, taking responsibility, and then having that kind of permission granted that other people are allowed to be how they are,
That's brilliant. And I just heard you talking about your kids, and it's, for me, everything's about failing forward a bit. So learning to live with love in your heart, it takes practice. How do you reinforce that with your kids?
Well, we do silent sitting meditation, and they do a lot of kind of stuff around that. So we have, this thing that we're all love, and we, say good morning, Mama Earth on a morning when we're going to the bus. I know that sounds weird, but still that we do, and we appreciate nature, and we speak about how we can. So we have like boxes of questions on the dinner table. I have 4 children, but my youngest 2 are 7 at the moment. I'm twins, age 7, and so they're absorbing all of this at the moment. So we have questions at the dinner table, and we talk about, how other people might feel, or how they feel, and how we can respect that, and all that kind of stuff. So, I think
that's cool. Can you talk? Yeah, sorry. Can you tell me about those cards at the dinner table? That sounds exciting.
Yeah, I've got a couple of different ones. We've got just a box of kind of, conversation starter questions. So, for example, tonight, the questions that came up were like, what do you think is the best thing about being a kid and the best thing about being a parent? And you get to hear what they really think, and what trait would you pinch of your brother or sister if you could, and that kind of thing. And you get to talk about what you admire about each other, and but in a very kind of lightweight way, if you know what I mean. So
that's gorgeous. I like that. I'm going to note that down and take that myself. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Kylie, if that's okay, what does it mean to you now? Because for me, you're somebody that I've met over the last sort of 12 months. We've never met in person, and my God, I love you, girl. Like, your heart is beautiful, and it's, we have the most beautiful conversations based upon love and just an acceptance. And I loved what you said there, Helen, about the acceptance, because it's so important. So I'd love to hear from you, Kylie. What does it mean to you?
It's I can't remember who said it. Sorry, about saying coming from like a place of. For me, I don't say to myself, "Oh, what about this or what about that?" It's more of like, what in me is being triggered when they do that. They do that, and I go, "Ooh," and I feel myself go, "Oh," and then I have to go, "What? What is it about that?" And that's my reaction. That's not them. They didn't say that intentionally to hurt me, or maybe they did, but it's my reaction to it. So for me, when that happens, it's like, what in me is doing that? Why do I want to come from that place of anger, or that place of hate, or that place of shame, or whatever? And then I say, no, I'm going to choose to come from this place with my heart open, and say, I can choose that. I can choose that reaction. And coming from that, it just changes. It can de-escalate a situation if that's what's going on, or it just changes the outcome. You know, it just changes where that's heading. I can easily tell someone to just shove it if I really wanted to, and I will if I want to. But I'll just be like, no, and I'm done, and you can just shove it. Or I can say, you know what? Okay, I get what you're saying, but for me, this is what I need to do, and that's what you need to do. But we're trying to get wherever we're trying to go, the same place or somewhere. So for me, it's just, and I guess I think Helen said authentic, you know, coming from a place of authenticity in yourself where you say, well, they can't make me angry. They can't make me come from a place of that. That's a choice I make.
I think it's also important too. I think you made a comment just a minute ago, Kylie, about when you're listening to somebody, and I think that's one of the most important things is that be prepared to listen and sit and listen with the intent to understand whatever the other person's the point that they're trying to get across, and make sure that you give yourself time. See, it's not a time-bound event to sit and listen to somebody when they, you know, it's not as, I know the immediate reaction is to butt into somebody halfway through a conversation and you're not right. No, that's not right. That's not what I said. That's not, you know, and it's argy-bargy backwards and forwards. But with love in your heart, for me, it means taking control of me and letting whoever it is or the situation at hand play out, taking it all in and absorbing it all. And with love in your heart, you can help yourself remain calm. And then you have a better opportunity then to either come up with a solution or offer assistance or be of service to somebody. And there's no right or no wrong in that conversation. It's about, for me, trying to understand from their point of view how they're feeling. And it's agreeing too, even if you don't agree necessarily with their point of view, but it's agreeing that they believe they're right. So you can agree with them because it makes them feel like you've actually taken notice. And then we turn around and come up with a scenario that may be of assistance, is what I felt in the past has worked really well. And you know, the difference between being uptight about something or having love in your heart, you tend to actually take more action in a situation rather than be reactive because you're coming from a very calm place. You know what I mean? It's because all I want to do is to understand. Many times when Scott's had and I've had discussions, is that it'll be a silent conversation where Scott will talk for hours, as we all know he can do.
Thank you.
And then we offer, you know, and we try and get to a place where I think I understand what you mean, mate. So how does this sound, or how does that sound? You know, is there a solution here? And I've been in the same situation where Scott's helped me from, you know, when I've had things that I've needed to discuss with him, and he's given me the time with love in his heart to listen. And there's no right or wrong answer for anything. It's just about being able to tell it how it is. But I like it when Kylie said that there is a point in time when you can tell someone to bugger off if you need to. Love in your heart, of course.
With love. Come through. Yeah. I've said it to my friends. I was like, and you're not doing this anymore. Said with love. Like, I'll just be like, no. And said with love. But
that's a very relevant point, though, because what Paul just said about being, when you're coming from a true place of love, there is no right or wrong. It's just understanding. And we're trying to find the bits and pieces out of the conversation that we can hear so we can ask questions so that we can love that person. Because if we're trying to find a way to learn, then I find it's impossible to not to dislike somebody. You're coming from a place of love because you want to learn more about them. So your experiences with that, Helen?
Yeah, I mean, as well, it's about really hearing them. And a lot of times people feel loved just by saying, I hear you. You know, yeah, that's tough. I get it. You know, it's actually not putting anything of yourself there, really, so much as holding the space for somebody to fully show up, to be able to then really release what it is they're there for. and then you do nothing really at all. But the actual fact of holding and just witnessing is often the greatest love act you can give anybody, because we don't hear each other anymore. We don't offer this space of not knowing. Everybody knows everything now. Like, everybody wants to tell their story. And generally, it's at the expense of somebody else's story. And so there are times when we need to drop ourselves from a conversation so that the other person who really needs you can kind of participate fully in their own story to be heard. And that we keep focusing back on to that so that they walk away just feeling like they've let go of something, or they've been able to release something. And I also find that a loving space is to ask permission as to what they want from you in it. So it's kind of like, do you want me to give you any advice, or do you want me to just listen? And then they go, I just want you to listen. And you go, okay. And they go, okay. And people are like, right then, because we're not used to it. We're not used to somebody just holding the space. We are used to people having advice or speaking about their own experience. So, yeah, I think loving is actually just being there. There's a lot to be said for the silence.
Definitely.
Yeah. Listening with the intent to listen, not answer.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kylie, you have a lot of experience with that, being that you work with people at the end of days. And this is like, it's no secret. I'm fascinated by it because at the moment I've got my neighbour, she's 91. And a year ago yesterday was the first anniversary of her husband passing away. And they'd been together since they were 20. And
yeah,
we had to put it. Yeah, well, I feel very grateful for the fact that she came over. We spent some time with her, but we had to put her cat down today. So she's come over. Like I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world right now because she's come to me. She's trusted me enough to go through the process with her, bury her cat in a safe position. But I find that this trust of just being there for her. And it's nothing more than that. I know she's on her own. Her kids are stuck over in South Australia. She's in isolation again now. She's in lockdown again. The only thing I can do for her, which you've taught me, is be there.
Aww.
And I'm so grateful for that. And it's
you were a doula for her and her cat. Oh, I'm so proud.
Yeah, I think it's one of the, and from this experience, I'm so grateful, and it's part of the Campfire sort of ethos, that every single time I'm on a panel, we listen to each other. We're here to listen and learn from each other, and we're actually giving love ourselves. So I'm just going to ask Kylie, if that's okay, for you to share with some of the beautiful things that you've that you've experienced from people acting with love in their hearts at the end of days. Because I truly believe that whenever you go to somebody's funeral, you hear all the good stuff. You hear all the great stuff about their lives. And I sort of wish we all got to know that before they passed away. But what are the things inside those last few days that people really grab a hold of?
I think it's, you definitely realize, material stuff just drops away. It doesn't matter. You all go, everyone gets taken out in the same size box. You can't take it with you. So there's an element of not caring about the material stuff anymore. And what fills that is what else. And it's, and whether it's finally letting go, I witnessed one that was just finally letting go of this incredibly strained, difficult relationship with her mum. So she was dying, but her elderly mother was still alive, and just all the tension leading up to it. And it was horrible, but she finally just went, just whatever. whatever, I just let her go. I just can't do it anymore. I can't fight. And now seeing her mum do the same thing, just like sort of letting that go, all that judgment that was there, all the she's done this wrong with her life, or I didn't approve of that, or whatever, just letting it go, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at the end of life. I think that's where, and I've seen people hang on to it. I've seen more people let go, more people just let it go, whatever that is. But I have seen people hang on to it, and that's harder, I think. My teacher said to me, people will die exactly the same way that they lived. So and I've seen that. If they've been self-absorbed, materialistic, narcissistic, and unwilling to forgive or forget or move on or let go, or then that shows up. There is a thing at the end of life that they call, it happens in the last few days, and there's different names for it. There's a medication they can have, but it's an anxiety, basically. It's anxiety medication at the end of life, but it's an anxiety thing, and it can mean things like throwing themselves around, calling out. Some people call it an existential death because of how it carries on. It's not pretty. And I haven't witnessed it as bad as I've heard it described. I've had doulas that have told, sort of debriefing and told me about it. And it's pretty full on. But the doulas that told me the worst one, she just said that woman died the way she'd lived. She just didn't let go of anything, hung on to things. And I just think that's not a peaceful way to go. And I think if you live your life with love, at the end you just know. I know that if I died tomorrow, everyone around me knows that I love them, that everything I said to them the last time I spoke to them was, it's okay that that's the last thing I said to them. Every single conversation I have is, if I died tomorrow, would that be okay that I left it like that? Nothing gets left unsaid. I just personally, I just find that would be a much nicer way if we all did that. If we all lived a bit like that. Because I don't want to.
What's changed for you? Sorry to cut you off there. What's changed for you since you became a death doula? What's become really important?
I think this is. I technically became a doula 3 years ago, but I've done this my whole life. I had a conversation with some other doulas in a group chat, and they said, where was your calling? Where was your defining moment? How did you decide this is what you wanted to do? And then some people wrote some beautiful stories about this happened and this happened. And I was like, I can't pick one. And then there was a couple of others after me going, me either. Just wanted somebody else to say I can't pick one. I think it's just something that I always did and felt comfortable with, and just has happened to me over the years. And people just called on me. People just looked for someone at that moment, and I was the one that put my hand up and said, yeah, right, I can do that. I think I know what I'm doing. Or most of the time I go, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. We'll just work it out. We'll work it out together. I say that, or actually I do say that. I don't know. I'll hold your hand and we'll work it out. And maybe
that is love. Just knowing that if you show up with love, actually there's nothing else you need.
No, you don't. And sometimes it's just, sometimes it's just holding their hand. Sometimes it's listening to them. Sometimes it's muddling through a crazy, crazy sudden death, which is shit. Just shit. Yep. But I went through one not long ago, a year and a half ago, and I just texted randomly his partner died suddenly, and I just texted him randomly, and I didn't hear back from him. The first one said, you don't have to answer me. I know you've got everything going on, but I'm just going to send you stuff. And so I would just send messages and check on him, and then it was 8 or 9 months later, I think I saw him. And he just gave me the biggest hug. And he said, that is what it was. That's just this message would show up and, you know, that got it through. And it was just stuff like, it's okay. This is shit. And I'm sorry. And that's all you have to say. You don't have to know what to say. But it's more, I know people who get all awkward and go, I don't know what to say, so I won't go. What the?
That's terrible.
People just go. Just sit there and go, this is shit. I don't know what to say. This sucks. What?
Just go. Well, if it's okay, I love what you're saying there, and I can reflect it in my own life based upon what happened with Paul. Like,
yeah.
I was in a really bad way. I was going through a business partnership breakdown and things were really tough. I couldn't even speak. I had trouble. And I spoke to Paul, and I must have sounded pretty bad because he said, get on the next plane, come down to Tassie. Paul was on holidays.
Aww.
He dropped what he was doing, met me at his place, and sat with me. I'm going to let Paul elaborate, but I must have dribbled for a fair while, but without him teaching me how to hold that, how to just sit there for me. Like right now, there's one of the things that I think is, I'm wrapped at Helen's here because, you know, a masculine concept of, you know, loving another man and sitting with him, letting him own his shit. Sitting with us tonight is a man that's done that for me. And I'm forever grateful. And I thank you for that, Paul. But I want to know what gave you the courage to be able to do that.
You know what? I didn't need any courage. There was a good friend of mine that was in a bad place, and all that needed to happen was that we needed to get together, and I needed to hold you, I needed to hug you. I just needed to reassure you that everything is going to work out. But you and I needed not just a phone call, but we needed the time to sit without any other distractions. And I needed to listen to you. Now, you know, you and I have spoken about this quite a few times now, that Helen and Kylie, he was almost inaudible. You know, for the first 2 or 3 hours, he'd go a third of the way through a sentence and then start another one. And I'm sure you ladies have probably heard people doing that before. He was a complete mess. And I reckon for the first 3 or 4 hours, he was like that. And then it just seemed like whether a light bulb came on there, although I believe, Scotty, you'd got it off your chest. And you'd spilled your guts, and it was just like a relief. And then bit by bit for the rest of the day, we started to put you and a bit of a future roadmap back together. So I think it was basically like verbal diarrhea, which was like a bit of a brain dump, but you just needed to get it all out. And fortunately, my wife Jan was there as well, because it took both of us actually to come up with different scenarios that may help. And, you know, Jan's, she's a terrific lady and a good listener as well. So, by the end of the day, and we put you back on the plane, we had a bit of a roadmap for you. You were a different person getting on the plane than getting off. But it was really, I think, giving you a safe place to land and to actually, and the time it took, which was at least that 3 or 4 hours, to actually, whatever was on your mind is to just get it out, and know that that you had two people that love you dearly, and you were in a safe place, and you were there were no rules, there were no boundaries, and we helped put you back together again. And I didn't need any courage to do that. In actual fact, it's one of them. I practice gratitude, as you and I do every day, Scotty, and it's one of the days in my life that I'll never forget. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity. But
I want to thank you. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, it's come from a place of love, as you know. And I mean, the thing is, I don't think you have to have courage to have love in your heart. I think it's just, as the ladies already know. I mean, you can tell just by listening to them both, that they have enormous amount of love in their heart, and it's to be honest with you, it's just an easier place to come from to help people.
Yeah. Well, the difference in my life from that day is huge. Like, I was an absolute mess. I couldn't put it together for home. I got, I got a wife and son at home, and I was useless to them. And every part of me was coming out at home, and it was just the importance of coming to somebody with love in your heart can change everything for them. And you did that for me. And one of the things that I'm so proud of now is that when we finish the conversation, I love you, mate. And the depth of our relationship and the support that's been there for one another has been some of the most amazing things. And I hope that anybody watching this, sometimes it was scary for me to initially come from a place of love. But when you find people that do come from a place of love, it does scare you a bit. But go in there. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to be. So I'm going to move over to Helen, if that's okay. You've just run the Modern Masculine Summit, and just before I go, Paul, again, thank you for being you. Helen, you've just run the Modern Masculine Summit, and the panel on there was just phenomenal, and all men acting with love in their heart. It's a new thing for men. I personally think men are doing an amazing job of stepping up to the plate to try and own their emotions. And, it's tough when if you go from just back one generation, there's a significant difference in the way we parent, the way we talk to each other, the way we try and feel, the way we try and change our relationships. What was it like spending time with men who all come from their heart? How did it make you feel?
Well, I mean, I called that in, it's because I have my own kind of acceptance of what I want around me as well. So we draw in the people who support our own values and our own energies. And that's the thing, is to call in the right people to show the way. Like you went to Paul for him to show you the way. And so bringing these incredible men together was a way of showing men the way through bringing all these amazing men doing amazing work to really kind of offset the narrative that this is not happening, because it really is. And it was a joy, and it was humbling to be able to put that on. I mean, I think when the COVID thing happened, I thought, I'm going to do something. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And the podcast I put on hold, and I just thought I'd done all of these pre-recordings, and I was all ready to kind of launch season 2. And then I thought, it's actually not relevant for right where we are right now. And so I had met quite a lot of amazing men over that year. And then as well, I had heard of other people, and people had contacted me and had amazing conversations, And so I was able to, within 2 weeks, gather 16 incredible men from 3 different countries around the world. And we had live discussions twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. And then I just had interviews during the day with different people. And we went through domestic violence, suicide, addictions, everything you could think of. And there wasn't just 1 or 2 people who could have filled that space. There's a plethora of incredible men doing amazing things. And I think the biggest battle is the thought that there isn't,
Yeah.
And so for me, it's actually more about just saying, when somebody's kind of saying, oh, men, blah, 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 I'm like, well, is that true though? And that's all. It's like, is that true though? And the same for men with women, women are, but is that true though? And so I understand that everybody's experience is reflective of their experience. But the beauty that we have, just even doing this panel now, is to constantly reintroduce new narrative, to actually challenge the truth story. Like, I get that that's your experience, but is that really true? Because I can show this person and this person and this person, and not as in a name drop or in a you're wrong, but just have them speak. And they tell their own story of amazing either behaviors or bravery, courage, or just what to a lot of people is a new way of being. And that feeling of coming from love is that we are not men or women. We are people. And for each man and woman, there are thousands of varieties of each of us. And so, I know some men who are so like me, it's ridiculous. And I know some men who are so opposite to me, it's ridiculous. And I know the same in women. So it's kind of like we actually have, and Alan says this as well, we're in a point where we've never been able to identify with each other more. Yet we're kind of walking away more. And it's almost kind of a contradiction in terms. We need to come together, and the more the need to come together and the more the kind of recognition of the want of love, the more rejection we feel and the more we actually project. And so there's an offset then that people are all, pissed off about stuff when actually they're just looking for connection. So it's really interesting watching that dynamic, and to be able to then challenge that by just literally talking to good people. I mean, like, wow, it's quite extraordinary to just show really beautiful people and have them to be seen, So yeah, it was an absolute honor to host such incredible people, and they're not isolated. We are surrounded by incredible people doing incredible work,
It's fascinating hearing you say that, because one of the things that I'm sort of noticing, and there's a lot of it in the campfire, that I personally had to learn to live with love in my heart. And I'm grateful that Paul taught me that, and the difference it made to my life and the way in which I think going into every situation is huge. And one of the things you just said there is you've got to experience that. And there's a lot of people out there doing it, but until you experience it, if I'm hearing it right, you don't know how to do it. But I think now more than ever, there seems to be a chain reaction of it, because then you come from love in the heart. You give that to somebody else, they can feel it. It's just a true feeling, like I've got up on the board here. Love is something that is given with acceptance, gratitude, and willingness. Love is an act. It's given, and then it's felt by the other person. And I just think that connection and love that you give to others, it's contagious. Your experiences with that, Kylie?
Yeah, it's I also find I really try to just give it unconditionally and don't expect anything back. And I think Helen said earlier about no expectations, let go of the expectations. So I know sometimes, you know what, I'm just going to love this, and I'll love the lesson in it for me, or whatever it is that's here for me, and I'll love it. And then there's nothing. I'm not expecting anything from that person. They're not going to give anything back. They may just tell me where to go, and that's okay. That's okay. That's just not how I'm going to choose to act. And you don't know the ripple-on effect that you can have. And even just the other day, I had a conversation with someone from school, which was a couple of 30 years ago. Maybe years ago, a couple of decades ago. And he said something to me about another guy that we went to school with, and he said, these two guys, and he said, they were the first people, the first blokes I'd ever seen that hugged like that. And these were teenage men at school in the 90s, in the 80s, and they said, well, that's the first. He said, I'd never seen blokes be like that, and he said, and now I know, I knew then it was okay to be like that, and I'm like that now. And I rang that guy and I said, do you know that you had this effect on this other bloke? And he was like, really? I said, you did. Like, that's the thing he said to me, is that long ago, he remembers how you were with your best mate, and that they were just loud and hugged each other and said they loved each other all the time and stuff. And it wasn't like that. It was, you know, they were two very blokey football sport playing blokey blokes. And it wasn't a homosexual love. It was and everyone knew. Everyone just went, I know they're best mates. That's how they are. And they are. But he gave permission to other people to do that. And that went on. And he didn't even know that many years later. And there's some wonderful men out there. I couldn't do my work. Like, I am surrounded by doulas, and 98% of them are female. There's very few male doulas. And those female, I couldn't do it without the support of all the other doulas. But I also couldn't do it. There's a circle of men around me, and they are good men, and I am blessed, and I thank them all the time for their love, and they show up and be fabulous, fabulous men, and all that they are, and they're gorgeous, and we need them. We need more of them, and we need them to stand up and be loud. So thank you, Paul and Scott, for doing this kind of stuff.
Well, good. Well, I'm actually going over to Paul right now. I'm going to ask him how, being in the trade industry, building sheds and all sorts of different projects, how has going into a situation with love in your heart changed the situation? Because things can go dramatically wrong on a building site. And to go in there with people that are generally going to be aggressive because they feel like they're not getting what they want, because at the end of the day, as a builder, you're an expectations manager. How, if you can give us a situation, if that's okay, that going in with love in your heart has changed that situation, changed that dialogue?
It all starts from the listening, as we discussed over the last 30 odd minutes. You know, it's there doesn't have to be any right or wrong in the customer's eyes. Let's just take the customer, for example, that we've had one recently where they've got a shed with the wrong colour, and it's, you know, it's a substantial fix, a $5,000 fix, and my team member, sales team member that sold it, obviously is quite remorseful and unsure how to fix it. So he's got the customer in his ear, and then of course there's a bit of trepidation that he's got to come to me and tell me that, you know, there's an issue. And so my first contact was with my sales team member, and I'm known for, and in my business, is that everybody takes the piss out of me, pardon me, girls, but for wanting them, being my team, to take me back to the beginning. That's what I'm known for. You know, you just don't come to me with the issue that you've got right now. You have to take me back through the story. How did we get there? What's the issue? Then and this is just like listening. So I've asked them to explain it, give me the history from start to finish. And, you know, that can take time. And of course, my team member is frustrated. They want an answer now. I can't give them an answer now. I can't help them now, support them now, without you telling me the whole story in context, so that I can understand how the customer's feeling. I can understand how the team member's feeling, because they're quite challenged and aggravated and frustrated. But at the end of it all, once I've listened to that, once again with love in my heart, so no one's getting scolded here. No, there's no right or wrong. I have to have all the information. And as it's turned out, you know, my sales team member did 98% of everything right. And it was just the 2%, whereas one form that he forgot to get the customer to fill out, which just happened to be the colour form, colour selection. Even though he had the colours on part of the agreement, he didn't actually have that one piece of paper that was instrumental to having this issue not happen. And at the end of the day, from the customer's point of view, the colour that they had didn't match up with the building's existing structures they had. So for me, it wasn't about right or wrong. It was about the customer's expectation and where would I be as the owner of the business and my reputation if I didn't try and do something about it. So, it wasn't about how much money it was going to cost. It was about the customer, and how could we be of service, which is another part of having love in your heart, is how can we help someone through issues. So even if we'd have signed all the documentation or had that particular paperwork filled out, it wouldn't have been a situation where, I'm sorry, you're going to have the shed colour, the one you've already signed for, because it's not what we do. And we need to meet their expectations. So it still becomes problematic, I guess, because I don't want that person to go away and say they closed the door and they didn't do anything to help. Would have still helped them through that process. But as it turned out, it was quite clear to me that we had let the ball down, or let the ball go, because we hadn't filled out all the paperwork correctly. But that was secondary to what the customer's needs were. They wanted something that matched in terms of colour. So we've ordered the new colours. They're ecstatic that we've been willing to help. And, I had another meeting with my team member today, and we talked about boots up people's backsides for doing the things wrong. And I said, it's not about that, Chris. I said, it's not about me giving you a boot up your backside. I said, what have you learned? And he said, well, the paperwork's there for a reason, isn't it? And I just said, well, correct. I said, and if you'd have filled it out, I said, would that have changed the situation? And he said, well, it would have done, but he said, we'd have still wanted to help them out and get the right colour, wouldn't we? And I said, yeah. So, for me, it was nothing, it sort of has nothing to do with the money and nothing to do with, how much it might have cost me or the business. It was about understanding and listening, as Kylie said, with the intent to understand from the sales team's point of view, from the customer's point of view. The only direction I wanted to go into was to get a result, a result which is win-win. It has to be a win for everybody so that everybody can be happy. And so that was the most recent thing that's happened. And look, to be honest with you, over the years, of course, when you get situations like that, in the early days when you're building a business, they become quite repetitive, and you think, well, if I don't do anything about it, I'm going to continue to get those issues. So over the years, we've refined our systems and procedures so that we minimise that. But after 45 years in the building industry, we're still making mistakes, and so there's always something to learn. But the anxiety is not there anymore like it was probably 20 or 30 years ago, because it doesn't have to be any anxiety anymore. And you talked about hugging. Helen, I think you both ladies may have mentioned about hugging. I'm a notorious hugger of men, women, anybody that needs a hug, and even customers that are having a bad day. They need a hug, and I obviously ask permission. I just don't go and hug, especially the girls. I don't go up them on purpose, except for my sisters-in-law and mother-in-law, and they just know that they're going to get one anyway, so it doesn't matter. But you can sense in people, can't you, that if just by the body language and the way they're talking, and they're talking at a rapid pace, and things are really just happening, and my whole world's falling against, I don't know what to do. And you think, do you need a hug? Oh yes, please. And so you put your arms around them, give them a big hug, and you can feel them start to relax in their body and go, okay, let's go and sit down, have a cup of tea, and we'll get something sorted. And of course, half an hour later, 10 minutes later, things are sorted out, and quite often they'll give me another hug before they leave. So, when we all get into practicing the love, it becomes so natural there is no effort. Ladies, I'm sure you agree that there is no effort in this. It just becomes part of who you are. And I know you're the same, Scotty. And so if more people do it, it would be an awesome place.
Mate, that is gorgeous. And I'm sorry, I'm sitting here smiling because I know very, very well. But to go into a business transaction with love into your heart, like I'm not sure many people think about that. I'm coming from a swimming pool construction background where it's always been very blokey. But you go into that situation with love in your heart. You made it safe for your sales rep to fail. So therefore, you've got a trust and a bond there. You've made it safe for your client to know that they're going to get the thing that they actually wanted in the first place. So going into business with acting with love in your heart, for me, I think it's one of the best things we could possibly do because you take away the blame. There's no blame. I accept this is where it is. How can we work through this together and find a win-win situation? Helen, would you like to throw something in on that?
Sure. I mean, a lot of the time, it's that first moment when somebody comes to you with that kind of like, oh my God, I stuffed up, and it's for me, I'm like, oh my God, like this instant kind of like, it's okay, everything's going to be okay, like that whole, almost taking the kind of almost the joy into the conversation to let them know that it's not the end of the world. And so I feel that the first thing we can do to kind of counteract that real stress of, I think you're going to be pissed off with me here, is to alleviate that straight away. And it comes from the balance of knowing who you're dealing with. A lot of the time, we know what's going to make that person feel better. And I said that to my kids as well. If you have what a person needs, why wouldn't you give it? Why wouldn't you offer it? We don't hold back care as a bargaining chip. You just offer care. And there's never a moment where emotions should ever be bargaining tools. If you have what somebody needs, offer it. And that's not giving away anything, giving away your power or any of that. It's actually just going, I see you as another human, and I could have done this a year ago, 18 months ago. I could do it next week. We know it's not purposeful when people make mistakes. So, of course, the severity is dependent on the kind of conversation you're going to have. But it's like Kylie said before, owning the trigger as well. When somebody comes with something that's difficult, it's kind of like, okay, and then noticing what that is within you. But if you ever then disappear into that, you've actually given the power away to that emotion, to that experience, to something outside of who you might be today, reacting from past learning. So I believe the best way to be is just in that moment with that person, being aware and very kind of centered in your own approach. As well, in this, there's this fine line of, like, I'm not here to be walked all over either. There's an assertiveness that you bring to a confrontation as such, but it's not passive, like, oh yeah, sorry for being alive, yeah, you're allowed to do that, and it's not aggressive. So there's this really kind of beautiful line that when you actually have love, the boundaries are clear, and the boundaries are actually something that makes the conversation really clean, and people feel really safe in it because they know what the boundary is. And both people then walk away feeling respected. So coming from love in your heart doesn't mean that you get walked on. It means that you care about an outcome for them, but you also care about an outcome for you. But it has to be clean. So and it's like anything. It's like Kylie said, you kind of go, okay, I'm loving this. I don't have to like it, but I'm loving my way through this, you know. So, and a lot of the stuff, like we're talking about finding the love in your heart, it comes from shit. That comes from having an experience that's terrible. It comes from knowing what it doesn't feel nice, you know. It comes from not having love. It comes from not feeling love. It comes from the darkness. So actually holding love, you know, it's the offset to the dark, isn't it? You know, so it's not all sweetness and light. It's just constantly coming with it, even when it's difficult, because that's when the rubber hits the road, you know.
I love hearing that, because to me, that's made the biggest difference in my life. It's coming from a place of love, even good and bad times, because the reason why it's so important for me is because I'm worth it. I'm worth showing up with love in my heart, because it helps me respond to things better, so I can understand them better. So therefore, I can take responsibility for my actions rather than sit there and blame somebody. I'm like, okay, what can I learn here? How can I love this person more? How can I understand them more? And it's just, I'm worth that, because I truly believe the most valuable real estate we have is between our ears. If I don't own it, something or someone else does. So that's the importance of having love in the heart. Believe it or not, we've gone through 56 minutes. Go on quickly. It happens every single time. And I'm so stoked to be back on a Thursday night. And I really want to thank you all for joining me tonight, because sitting here on this panel is people that truly love and they care. And if you want to find out ways in which you want to find out, opportunities, reach out to any of them, because I'm sure they're there for you, because their hearts are so full of love, they will help you with yours. So on that tonight, I don't let anybody go without giving me one bit of gold. What is your advice, Kylie? Your one bit of advice. You're expecting it. So.
I forget that you do this all the time. I forget, and I do it at the end all the time. I'm like, damn, that's right. I'm supposed to have something. Some nugget.
Your first two, Kylie.
I know.
So what's your nugget, Kylie?
Oh, I had it before and it went away. It's gone now. No. You have to give someone else. I can't remember.
All right, we'll be back in a minute. Paul, would you mind?
Yeah, look, I think it's don't be frightened to go and give someone a hug. Ask them how are they feeling. You're okay. If you can see it, sense it, just give them a hug.
Thank you. Helen?
Allow people to not know, you know. Allow people to struggle. Allow people to not be perfect. Just let people be who they are in the world without becoming attached to it. Just, reflect on it from your own situation, because you never ever know where they have been or what they're about to go through or learn from where they're at, because they could be in that place where they're about to have that breakthrough that you were talking about. So, give people the benefit of the doubt.
Gorgeous, thank you. Kylie?
I remembered. I wrote it down.
Hey!
And I'm not allowed to swear. So
Alan's
boundaries.
not here.
That's a naughty word. Boundaries. I think people think if you love like this that you're going to get walked on, and it's not. I think the most compassionate people I know have boundaries like the boundaries are really, really clear, and there's something about giving that much love, where it comes from. It's self-fulfilling, and you just keep going. It doesn't run out. It keeps going and going and going, and there's it just creates boundaries, and and I think that's a really big thing. I think it will just keep flowing, and there will be boundaries if you come from a place of love.
Beautiful, thank you. And for me tonight, if you don't feel loved, give some. That's my biggest thing, because the act of giving love will help you to love yourself.
Yeah.
So on that tonight, panel, thank you so much. Paul, welcome to the first Campfire, and I'm looking forward to introducing you on our one-on-one when I can learn how to use a bloody computer properly. Helen, thank you so much. I've enjoyed having you on, and Kylie, as always, love you to bits. I love the three of you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I love you too, Scott. Thank you for having me.
Happy to meet you.
Yeah.
You too.
Cool. All right, well, thanks, campers. Take care. We're back again next Thursday. You'll see Helen again next Thursday, so it's going to be a cracking conversation. Look forward to seeing you on next Thursday's live. If you've got any questions based upon the conversation you've seen today, chuck them in the comments. We'll get back to you. So, all right. Thanks, campers. Take care. We'll see you again next week.
Thanks. Bye.